An Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. Book 3, Chapter 40. To the Widowed. St. Paul instructs all prelates in the person of St. Timothy, saying, "Honor widows that are widows indeed." Now, to be a widow indeed, these things are requisite. 1. That the widow be such not only in body but in heart, that is, that she have an inviolable resolution to continue in the state of holy widowhood. For those widows who only await the opportunity of marrying again are only separated from men in bodily presence, but are united to them in the will of the heart. If the true widow, in confirmation of her widowhood, will offer her body and her chastity to God by a vow, she will add a great ornament to her widowhood, and greatly strengthen her resolution. For reflecting that after her vow she can no longer forsake her chastity without forsaking paradise, she will be so jealous of her design that she will not permit the least thought of marriage to harbor in her heart. But this holy vow will place a strong barrier between her soul and all things contrary to her resolution. St. Augustine strongly recommends this vow to the Christian widow, and the ancient and learned Origen goes further, for he counsels married women to vow and dedicate themselves to widowed chastity in case their husbands should die before them, so that amidst the sensual pleasures of their marriage they still may enjoy the merit of a chaste widowhood by means of this anticipated promise. Such a vow renders the deeds which follow it more acceptable to God, strengthens our courage to perform them, and not only gives to God those works which are the fruit of our good will, but also dedicates to Him the will itself, which is the tree of our good actions. By simple chastity we lend our body to God, still retaining the liberty to submit it to sensual pleasures. But by the vow of chastity we give it to Him in an absolute, irrevocable gift, without reserving any power to recall it, thus happily rendering ourselves His slaves, whose service is better than all royalty. And as I greatly approve the counsel of those two great men, so would I have those souls who are so happy as to wish to follow it, to do so prudently, holily, and solidly, after due examination of their own strength, and invocation of divine guidance, and under the counsel of some wise and pious director, and then it will be fruitfully done. 2. Further, this renunciation of a second marriage must be done in purity and simplicity, so as to more wholly centre all affections in God, and to unite the heart from all sides to that of His divine majesty. For if the wish to enrich her children, or any other worldly aim, induces a widow to remain such, she will have her measure of praise, but not before God, since nothing is praiseworthy in His sight but what is done for Him. Moreover, the widow who would be truly such must be separate and voluntarily deprived of all profane delights. St. Paul says that she who liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. To resolve to remain in widowhood and yet take delight in flattering attentions and caresses, to frequent balls and festivities, to dress with care and studied elegance, this is to be living indeed in the body, but dead in the soul. What, pray, does it signify whether the sign of Adonis's dwelling be made under a plume of white feathers or under a veil of crape? Indeed, sometimes vanity gains most by black, which does but enhance the whiteness of that which it surrounds. And the widow who has already tried the means by which women can best please men, has command of the most perilous wiles. Therefore, she who lives in foolish pleasures is dead while she lives, and in truth is but an idol of widowhood. The time of pruning is come, the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. That cutting off of worldly superfluities which is required of all who would live piously. But above all it is necessary for the true widow, who like a chaste dove is yet freshly weeping, lamenting, and groaning over the loss of her husband. When Naomi returned from Moab to Bethlehem, and those of her own city asked, "Is this Naomi?" she answered, "Call me not Naomi," which means gracious and beautiful. "Call me Mara, for the Almighty hath quite filled me with bitterness," because her husband was dead. And so the devout widow never desires to be called or counted beautiful or gracious, being satisfied to be what God would have her, that is, humble and lowly in his eyes. Those lamps which are fed with aromatic oil yield the most grateful odor when their flame is extinguished. And so those widows whose married love has been pure spread abroad the greatest perfume of virtue and chastity where their light, that is, their husband, is extinguished by death. It is no great thing to love a husband while he lives, but to love him so much as after his death to refuse all others is a degree of love only appertaining to true widows. To hope in God while sustained by a husband is not so rare, but to hope in him when destitute of that prop, the husband, is highly praiseworthy. Wherefore the perfection of those virtues practised in marriage is best seen in widowhood. The widow who has children needing her care and guidance, especially in what concerns their establishment in life and the welfare of their souls, neither can nor ought to abandon them. For St. Paul clearly says that widows are bound to take this care of them, that they may grow up like their parents, and that whoso does not provide for his own is worse than an infidel. But if the children are in such a position as not to need guidance, then the widow should gather together all her thoughts and affections and apply them purely to her advancement in the love of God. Unless any imperative cause forces a widow to involve herself in external embarrassments, such as legal processes, I should counsel her wholly to abstain from such, and to follow that method of conducting her affairs which will be most peaceful and tranquil, even if it be not the most fruitful. For truly the fruits of such worry must be very great to be compared to the blessing of holy tranquillity. Besides that, all process and disturbing entanglements tend to confuse the mind and open the way to the enemies of chastity, since in order to please those whose favor is needed, she must assume undevout manners, unpleasing in God's sight. Prayer should be the widow's continual exercise, for as she must no longer have love for any save God, neither should she have any words save for him. And as iron is hindered by the diamond from following the magnet, but approaches it in proportion as the diamond is removed, so the widow's heart, which could not thoroughly rise toward God, nor wholly follow his divine attraction during her husband's life, should after his death hastily run after the odor of celestial perfumes, saying with the bride, O Lord, now that I am mine own, receive me as thine. Draw me, and we will run after thee to the odor of thy ointments. The virtues best befitting a holy widow are perfect modesty, renunciation of honors, rank, large assemblies, titles, and all such vanities, serving the poor and sick, consoling the afflicted, leading maidens toward a devout life, and setting a perfect example of virtue to all young wives. Necessity and simplicity are the ornaments of their attire, humility and chastity of their deeds, purity and cheerfulness of their words, modesty and meekness of their eyes. And Jesus Christ crucified is the sole love of their heart. In short, a true widow is in the church like a little spring violet, which, while it is hidden amid the large leaves of its lowliness, spreads around unequalled sweetness through devotion, and by its sober color denotes mortification. It grows in open, uncultivated spots, not seeking the contact of the world, that it may the rather preserve the freshness of heart against the heat which longing after wealth, honor, or love would arouse. If she abide in this sort, says the Apostle, she shall be blessed. I could say much more on this subject, but I shall say all in advising the widow who is jealous of preserving her widowhood to study with attention the beautiful epistles which St. Jerome wrote to Furia and Salvia, and all those other women who were so happy as to be the spiritual daughters of such a father. For nothing can be added to what he there says except this, that the true widow should never blame or censure those who do enter into second or even third and fourth marriages, for sometimes God thus orders events for the advancement of his glory. And one must always keep in mind that which the fathers taught, that neither widowhood nor virginity have any merit in heaven except that which is assigned to them by humility. End of chapter 40.